Please turn on your microphone when speaking. For those participating via Zoom, please state your name when making a comment or asking a question. The MAG public comment process allows members of the public to comment on items that fall under MAG's jurisdiction. If you would like to comment at today's meeting, please complete the request to speak form. MAG staff can assist with any questions you may have. If you parked in the garage, parking validators are available on the information table in the hallway. If you purchased a transit ticket to come to the meeting, please see staff for a ticket. Hearing assisted devices are available from MAG staff. We will now begin the meeting with a roll call of all members.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members. I will go down the list of members alphabetically. Please unmute and indicate if you are present. David Berry. Councilmember Butler.
Present.
Thank you. Jen Daniels. Doug DeCluson.
Present.
Thank you. Councilmember Edwards.
Present.
Thank you. Mayor Gallego.
Present.
Thank you. Mayor Giles. Thank you. John Graham. Mayor Hall.
Present.
Thank you. Councilmember Councilmember Littlefield.
Here.
Thank you. Councilmember Manfredi. Roy Miller.
Present.
Thank you. Chair Osborne.
Present.
Thank you. Tyler Pace. Mayor Peterson.
Present.
Thank you. Mark Reardon. Supervisor Sellers.
Present.
Thank you. Councilmember Stewart. Councilmember Stipp.
Present.
Thank you. Mayor Wires.
I'm here.
Thank you. Mayor Wise. Mayor Wheatley.
Present.
Thank you. Mayor Woods.
Present.
Is there anyone that I missed? Mr. Chair, we have quorum.
Thank you. Would you all please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance? Pledge of Allegiance
I'm sorry, John Graham is on too.
to the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Our next item is called the audience. This is the opportunity for the public to comment on items that fall under MAG's jurisdiction that are not on the agenda. Informational items or items on the agenda for discussion and not for action. 15 minutes will be provided for the call to the audience unless the chair requests an exception to the limit. And I do not have any speaker request cards for call to audience. Do we have any over there? We have none over there. MAG also provides the opportunity for members of the public to submit written comments via the MAG website. Any comments received 2 hours prior to the meeting have been shared with the committee members in advance of the meeting for consideration and will be included in the formal meeting minutes. And staff, have we received any online written comments for the call to the audience?
Thank you, Chair. We have received 2 written comments for the call to the audience, which have been provided to the members in advance of the meeting for consideration.
Okay. Thank you. On to item number 4. Item 4A is for information only. Does any member of the committee have any questions or request a presentation on any of these items? And I'm seeing and hearing none. The next agenda item is number 5, approval of consent agenda. Items 5A through 5E are on the consent agenda. Does any member of the committee have any questions or request a presentation of any of these items? And I'm hearing and seeing none. Prior to the approval of the consent agenda, there's an opportunity for members of the public to comment on any item on the consent agenda. And I have no request to speak for the consent agenda. Staff will receive any online written comments for the consent agenda.
Thank you, Chair. We have received 2 online written comments for the consent agenda, which have been provided to the members for consideration.
Okay, thank you. Is there a motion to approve consent agenda items 5A through 5E?
So moved. Second.
We have a motion from Councilmember Stipp and second from Mayor Wheatley. We'll have those participating in the meeting online take part in the voice vote by turning on their cameras and unmuting their audio. We need to see the faces of everyone to participate in the voice vote. For those who cannot or do not want to turn on their cameras, staff will conduct a roll call vote. Staff will only call on those virtual participants who did not turn on their camera. Members, please leave your cameras on until after the roll call vote. so that staff can count the people's names whose cameras are not on. Can I have a voice vote of those in the room and those online? Those in favor say aye,
Aye.
and those opposed say nay. Members, please leave your cameras on. Staff, can you take a roll call vote of the members participating virtually who did not turn on their cameras?
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members. When I call your name, please indicate how you vote. Mayor Hall?
Aye.
Thank you. Councilmember Littlefield? Councilmember Littlefield? Mr. Chair, the motion passes.
Okay. Thank you. Under items to be heard, number 6 is electrification readiness and vehicle fleets. This item is on the agenda for information and discussion, introduced by Audra Thomas, Chief of Staff.
Thank you, Chairman Orr, members of Transportation Policy Committee. Pleased to present and introduce your guest speaker today for this item. As electrification technology continues to advance, it requires readiness of our region to prepare for an increasing electric future, but also to take advantage of new funding opportunities provided through IIJA. As we've discussed previously, this is a historic time for that level of investment, whether it's IIJA, IRA, or the CHIPS Act, just to name a few. Recently, the EPA announced another new grant program to fund zero-emission heavy-duty vocational vehicles, including garbage trucks, street sweepers, and bucket trucks, as well as a dedicated set-aside for school bus replacement. The deadline for the Clean Heavy-Duty Vehicles Grant Program is July 25th and is intended to assist with fleet transition nationwide. Diane Brown, Executive Director of the Arizona PIRG, together with the Frontier Group, has facilitated research efforts to explore the impact of fleet electrification. This research included engagement and case study of 10 municipalities in the state of Arizona, including 9 which are MAG member agencies. Arizona PIRG was an engaged stakeholder in MAG's electrification readiness strategic plan accepted by MAG Regional Council last fall. Today's presentation will provide a brief overview of the research data and the implications thereof. I'd like to introduce with that Diane Brown.
Thank you, Audra, and thank you, Chairman Osborne, for the invitation to be here today. Mayors, council members, members of the committee, I'm honored to have the opportunity to speak with you about transportation electrification. For those unfamiliar with the Arizona PIRG Education Fund, here's a brief description about our organization. When it comes to transportation electrification, the Arizona PIRG Education Fund has been involved in a number of state and local policies with a goal of ensuring an effective and efficient transition to electric vehicles. We appreciate the commitments that MAG has made to date and the work of many of you and what you've already accomplished in your municipality. I want to highlight a couple items on this slide in which we were actively engaged. A few years ago, the Arizona Corporation Commission directed APS and TEP to develop a transportation electrification plan. After a very robust, and I would say very robust, stakeholder process, they emerged with a comprehensive plan that supports a medium scenario goal of over 1 million EVs on Arizona's roads by 2030. A couple months ago, SRP doubled a goal that it had previously set just a few years ago and now have a policy to enable 1 million EVs in their service territory by 2035. The reason I'm mentioning these goals is to underscore that there's a significant movement toward transportation electrification in our state, and municipalities, once again, have the ability to be at the forefront, this time with vehicle fleet transition. I'm going to focus my presentation on the 2 reports that Audra mentioned we conducted with the Frontier Group. But first, I want to mention overall benefits to transportation electrification that we also spoke to in each of the reports. As I said, I'll get into more of the specifics for the reports in a minute. but I did want to flag that the study that APS and TEP conducted found transportation electrification could generate $12 billion in net benefits for utility ratepayers through better grid utilization and $9 billion for EV drivers and fleet owners through reduced operating and maintenance costs. I know I don't need to elaborate to this committee the significant air quality challenges we face in this region and the potential economic impacts, but I do want to remind you that tailpipe emissions are a significant contributor to poor air quality and adverse public health impacts, which stems from some of those pollutants, also carries a price tag and medical costs for many individuals and families. So now I'm going to turn to our reports. As you're likely aware, there's been a lot of research that has consistently looked at the lifetime cost savings associated with driving an EV over a gasoline or diesel-fueled vehicle. With local municipalities often looking to trim wasteful costs and save money for taxpayers, we wanted to document the costs and benefits of transitioning fleets to electric and chose to survey 10 of Arizona's largest municipalities. This slide illustrates why we chose to focus on light-duty vehicles. The municipalities surveyed were asked to provide very specific details on the light-duty vehicles in their fleet, including the make, model, mileage, amount of money spent on gas and maintenance by fuel and vehicle types. Additionally, they were asked to tell us a little bit more about their spending when it comes to EV charging and costs related to EV charging facilities for their municipal vehicles. Our report found that 10 of the largest municipalities in Arizona would collectively save nearly $80 million for taxpayers by transitioning their fleet to electric. As you can see here, the largest cost savings come from fuel and also from operating from fuel and maintenance costs, as EVs, as I'm sure you all know, have fewer moving parts than internal combustion engine vehicles and require less routine uptake. I'd also mention that when we conduct analysis, we tend to be conservative and take a conservative approach. And so if you look here at vehicle cost and insurance, those are likely to come down in time as EVs reach more parity with internal combustion engine vehicles in their costs. They're likely to also see greater overall savings for the collective region and for each municipality. Regardless, saving $80 million for taxpayers, we think is quite significant. Perhaps more importantly or interestingly for this committee, we found that each municipality we surveyed would save millions of dollars over the next decade by purchasing EVs as gas-fueled vehicles are retired. And I really want to emphasize a point here. Our report did not look at taking any vehicles off the road prematurely. This is as vehicles would retire anyway if you replace them with electric. And again, focus on the light duty fleet, this is what we come up with. And while we wanted to really center our report on impacts to municipal budgets, we also recognize the benefits that EVs bring to air quality and public health. And this slide illustrates the reduced emissions of core pollutants. In the instance of sulfur oxide, which is listed at the bottom, we maintained a business as usual scenario for the electric grid. However, we know that as coal plants retire in Arizona and the grid gets cleaner, we can expect to see notable reductions here as well. Our report goes into a more detailed methodology, but I did want to note a few points here. So the surveys were largely conducted in late 2021, and the analysis only includes categories for which electric models were available and did not include first responder vehicles. The report used the cost of EVs at the time and didn't account for the likelihood that as more EV models continue to enter the marketplace and the uptick in sales continues, we're likely to see a larger savings. The report also did not include infrastructure, which we do recognize can be significant, but it is also too variable to predict in an overall report. The one thing I will say is in working with the utilities and talking to them about this report and findings, they do continue to believe that there is an overall net benefit to each municipality and to the region as a whole. I also wanted to point out that when we conducted this survey, there were only 31 EVs in the municipality surveyed. And today we know that if you just look at Phoenix, Mesa, and Tempe, there is about 5 times that number that are already here and going on our roads. Gas prices also, I'd point out, which we know are volatile, they're 55 cents higher today than they were when we conducted the survey, which again points to the potential additional cost savings that wasn't reflected in this report. So I wanted to mostly focus on that initial report because we looked at municipalities specifically in Arizona. We, after releasing the report, and I would just note all of the underlines have hyperlinks to the documents. We got a lot of inquiries from folks around the country as well as from some other municipalities in Arizona. And we decided to really look at this from a larger perspective. The overall kind of assessment here really mirrored what we found in the municipal fleets report for Arizona. And while we didn't do as much of a detailed data surveying each municipality or each state across the country, it was really in line and noted some of the changes and opportunities that existed about a year and a half later. We released the second report in June of last year. And here is just another kind of slide that shows a little bit of a different graphic and points to the fact that if Arizona local governments and the state itself transitioned our fleets to electric, again, light duty fleets to electric over the next 10 years as vehicles retired, we'd see a savings of approximately $283 million for taxpayers. Here is some of the statewide air quality and public health benefits. The only thing I'm going to just kind of highlight on this slide, because I think it's all pretty straightforward, is that last bullet point, just to kind of put it in perspective, it's the same amount as produced by driving more than 1 billion miles in a typical car. So quite significant. All right, the final slide that I want to review is overall how we can move forward in our suggested roadmap for fleet electrification. In developing the electrification plan, we really wanted to make sure that folks are looking at kind of a sequential order, but also a flexible order of kind of moving forward. We recommend that as you set a goal for municipality and work with folks in your municipality, that you're working with each of the relevant departments. We've heard stories from some places across the country where one department becomes in charge and then the others get brought along. We think it's best to really bring the relevant departments together and kind of talk through some of the opportunities as well as the challenges, which we recognize are real along the way. We also think it's really important that municipalities collaborate together and also that you collaborate with the state and other entities. We in particular think any that have taxpayer money, so think of universities, community colleges, schools, that the more that you're able to work together to look at infrastructure and also to look at procurement has even more financial savings as a potential there. And then the last point that I want to make here is that the utilities in Arizona, particularly in the MAG region, APS and SRP, have fleet assessments that they are willing to do for municipalities. And this really, I think, provides an excellent opportunity to look specifically at your municipal fleet, what's needed, what kind of infrastructure is needed, but also as a region for you all, which have a great track record of working together and collaborating for the region to really look at how that infrastructure can be placed. We really appreciate the work that MAG has been doing in this area, the Climate Pollution Reduction Grant and other federal funds have an opportunity for further expansion in terms of taking advantage of infrastructure and AV vehicles. We're hopeful that the region will get awarded that. And even if you haven't focused on purchasing EVs, there will be an opportunity for that as well. And my contact information is up here. I really encourage you, encourage your staff to reach out to us. We're happy to bring in folks that can work with your municipality in terms of fleet electrification. We're willing to help share resources that we have with you. And we also really do want to hear about challenges that you're facing. We know that this is something that a lot of municipalities are moving forward with, and we're learning a lot. And we really think that this is a good opportunity to save money for taxpayers, and we hope that you will work to do so even more than you are today. Thank you.
Thank you, Diane. Really appreciate you coming in and presenting this to us. We had a conversation about it, and I thought this was right up our alley with the electrification of the fleets that we've been talking about, and making sure that we have charging stations in place and coming up with a plan for that. This conversation fits right into it, and the benefits that you're pointing out, I think are very intriguing. So I do have one question, just to make sure we're comparing apples and apples on cost. You had a slide up that talked about the amount of savings for fuel, and I don't remember exactly right there. So the 52 million is in a comparison. This would be the total cost of ownership savings. Is there a slide that discusses or a cost that's captured in there, the cost of the electric to charge the fleet vehicles?
Chairman Osborne, great question. Yes. And that was part of what we received from municipalities, as well as looked to the utilities. And in the methodology for the Electric Fleets for Arizona report, I believe that breaks it down. We can also provide that. But we really, in each of these categories, wanted to look kind of comprehensively at what municipalities were paying for today, and also what municipalities would be paying for if the light duty fleet transitioned.
So that's the net out,
Correct.
The net savings out, the fuel or energy, one or the other you're paying for. That's the net savings to municipalities.
Correct.
Okay. Okay, great. Thank you. Any of the members have questions or comments on this? All right. Thank
Thank you very
Diane.
much.
All right, that was for information and discussion. Item 7 is fare collection system modernization update. This item is on the agenda for information and discussion also, and will be introduced by Hannah Quincy, transportation planner.
Thank you, Chairman and members of the Transportation Policy Committee. Today, I'll be introducing this item and our speakers presenting an update on the fare collection modernization. Valley Metro and the City of Phoenix, the two primary operators of public transit service in our region, purchased and installed the existing fare collection system for the region's bus and rail system in 2008. Not only are the fare boxes now reaching their end of useful life, but transit riders have had very limited options in how and when to purchase their transit fares. For example, currently you have to purchase a magnetic striped paper pass on board the bus using either cash or finding a retail vendor in advance of riding to purchase a fare. So Valley Metro began efforts to update the fare collection system nearly a decade ago. In 2015, they initiated a study to explore technical upgrades to the fare collection system, recognizing the need to move away from these paper passes and to move towards new advancements in electronic fare media. The fare collection modernization effort represents a multi-phased regional effort to implementing a modern fare collection system on our buses and trains, with the primary goals of, first and foremost, enhancing the customer experience, to provide more easy to use options for fare payment for our customers and riders. So specifically, That includes app-based mobile ticketing and trip planning, account-based reloadable smart cards with stored value, fare capping, and onboard and station fare tapping to help speed up the boarding process. This effort will also enhance the agency's ability to collect ridership data and their fare media distribution efforts. I also wanted to touch on the funding. As this is a regional effort, over $50 million has been allocated in our region's Federal Transit Administration formula funds, and our region's local sales tax dollars have been allocated to this effort. Chair Orsborn and members of the committee, I'm now going to turn it over to our agency partners who are going to give a more detailed presentation on these efforts and the phased implementation of the fare collection system modernization. So today we have Ken Kessler, Valley Metro's Chief Financial Officer, and Joe Bauer, the City of Phoenix Public Transit Department Deputy Director. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Let me check. Not quite. Good morning, Chair and members of the committee. Thank you, Hannah, for laying the groundwork for this presentation. As she said, this has been a long path forward, and the Valley Metro Board, those that have affiliations with the Valley Metro Board, and of course the City of Phoenix, the mayor, our council supported this project. I think we're fortunate in our path of approvals. We have a dual track path. We go through the City of Phoenix City Council, and we go through the Valley Metro Board. So I think that's a very robust check and balance on the process. So this project is unique it's not unique in that it's regional, but it's unique in that there were 3 main contracts for this project. The City of Phoenix procured one for the bulk of the capital portion, but Valley Metro also has contracts for a brand new retail network across the valley, and also for a call center, which is an integral part for customer support with the new technology. And the retail network is that close to being ready to go. The call center has been operational since February of 23 for the Super Bowl, and you'll see that in a slide. There's another component that is another Valley Metro contract, that is the replacement of the fare boxes. So this is a total start over, right? The whole system is being revamped. Let me see. And to date, we started this project in early 2020, and in July of 21, we launched a version of the mobile app that included trip planning and real-time bus and rail information, which is a very popular feature where you can track the buses and trains in real time to see how they are adhering to schedules. Super Bowl, February 23, we launched ticketing through the mobile app, which really took off and has continued to grow ever since. One of the things that one of our goals as the overall project is reduce fare registration is a new requirement formally. And we've experienced a lot of fraud in the current system. The ability to vet people purchasing a reduced fare. So the registration process, we launched a online application. We've been doing extensive outreach to get people eligible for the reduced fare registered through town hall events, which are going on now, various emails, newsletter, that type of approach to get that aspect up and running. We're started in March of April to roll out cards. In fact, today, as a City of Phoenix employee, I got my new reloadable smart card. So starting June 1, I can start tapping that on the bus or on the light rail validators. And then this month and in June, we're calling it a soft launch. Anybody with a platinum pass card will be able to use them starting June 1. We're have the ADA Platinum Pass community with their cards in hands, and that process is ongoing. And as people start to go online and get a card, they can start using that. We're also going to continue, obviously, with the mobile ticketing aspect. Those features are going to get more robust as we go along. So this summer we'll have a full launch. Right now we're in the midst of ticket vending machine installations. As of the first part of May, we completed a new TVM at every platform in the alignment. Those are not actually on yet, but they're set up now so we can begin testing. And everybody, people, once they go on live, will be able to purchase a reloadable smart card and or add value to that card. And then we're going to phase out the paper passes that Hannah referenced. We call them mag stripes. And those will be phased out over the next couple months. And we'll be offering people for unused cards to get a refund or a credit depending on the circumstance. So in the new system, when you get on the bus or you are at a light rail platform, you're either going to scan a barcode if you have the mobile app, or you're going to tap your reloadable card on that same validator that's at the platform or on the bus. And then you'll need to do that every time you board a bus or a train. Oh, did I go? Yeah. So another new feature that really speaks to the unbanked in particular, or low-income populations, is we call it Smart Fare. So right now, if I want to buy a more cost-effective 31-day pass, I have to pay $64 up front. That'd be for a local pass. And with the new system, you can pay as you go. So every time I board, it counts towards that cap, and then the back office of the application then accounts for that. And then when you reach your $64 for the month, the rest of your rides are free. And there's also obviously there's a daily cap of $4, which is 2 rides. And then if you ride more than twice in a day, the rest of that day is free. And then we have a weekly cap of $20. So the same principle applies. Once you hit that in that week, then you're riding for free. And in the mobile app, this is getting more robust every time that we get a new update with the new. These are some screenshots. You'll be able to pick your favorite bus stops or routes and get messages custom, or excuse me, I shouldn't say custom, but directed to your favorites when there's a rider alert or something of that sort. It'll also help you determine where, if you want to add value to your mobile app account or your reloadable card, where you can get that assistance through a retail network. We also have if our retail network will be approximately 800 locations that you could purchase or reload. About half of those will have the ability for somebody that is unbanked to take cash, and it can be loaded to your phone. So your account for transit fare on your phone. So that's a really nice feature that we're going to have. And then with your own personal account, as long as you register, you can manage your account. You can see what transactions and rides you had. And then there's a dashboard to show you where your progress is related to your smart fare capping. So again, these are just some images of the validator tapping on the front panel, or if you have your mobile app and the ticket, the barcode, and scanning the barcode. So the new retail in the locations, it's been quite an effort to get that squared away and have agreements with all the retail vendors. Some of the larger grocery store mergers come into play a little bit. But Circle K, by far the most vendors that we have is Circle K network, but we're capturing a broad swath. We do have to look at the distribution to make sure that low-income minority areas are served equally as well. There is a aspect too that looks at more of the MA-PA type operations that can provide that same feature. So again, loading cash to the app is a big feature because we do have a large unbanked population that use cash. We approximately 20% of our fares are cash based. So that is a significant number. I think that we need to have that capability. So now I will turn it over to Mr. Kessler.
Thanks, Joe. Members of the committee. I'm going to go over our outreach efforts to get the word out there, make sure the public and our riders know the new features of the system, understand kind of the process for the transition from the current system to the new system. Also going to talk about some of our specialty pass programs and what we're doing with that going forward. So as far as our efforts, a lot of things going on. Hillary Foose and her team putting in a lot of effort at Valley Metro to kind of work to get all the information out there, signage and announcements across the system. The social media and print ads are out there. We're doing smart fare education. Again, as Joe mentioned, it's a whole new thing, this whole concept of fare capping where you don't buy a pass, but yet you pay as you go and your card or account caps at a certain amount for the day, the week, and the month. So we want to make sure folks really understand how that works. We're working through a number of community events, working through a lot of your cities to get out there in the community and have that interaction with the public and our riders. As part of this, we're also working towards getting the reduced fares out there to the folks who are truly eligible. And those are age-based for senior, youth, and persons with disabilities or Medicare card holders. As Joe mentioned, currently in our system, basically anybody can go to any retailer and buy a reduced fare, whether you're eligible or not. And we've seen, based on data, that there's a significant amount of abuse of that. So with this new system and the requirement to have a reduced fare registered account or a smart card that's a reduced fare specific and go through that eligibility process, we think is going to be really helpful to the system in terms of our revenues and as well as really providing the benefit to those who truly deserve it. So a lot of engagement with employers and organizations as word has been rolling out about the new system. Not only have we been in contact with some of these organizations, but they've been reaching out to Valley Metro and inquiring. Some organizations that may not participate in any of our past programs currently are hearing the word of the transition, and they're kind of hearing about some of our programs. So just in the last week, I've been involved in about 5 or 6 meetings with some organizations that are interested in joining. And that's a good benefit for us because it provides a way for us to get transit fares to individuals in a mass basis through organizations and groups as opposed to just individual riders from the public. So we're pretty excited about the engagement that's happening there. And as Joe mentioned, upcoming, we'll start our copper card distribution. That's our new smart fare card. That'll be rolling out with a soft launch as we sort of turn on these new sales channels. The retail network, we have an existing retail network today for the paper passes, but the new retail network will work much differently. So we have to engage with those retailers to make sure their POS systems will work with our cards, our barcodes to scan those, just like a gift card. So today you go to Fry's, you buy a gift card, you go to the cashier, they scan the barcode, you put on a dollar amount. That's how our model will work going forward. And then also upcoming, a lot of on the system outreach. So at some of those busier transit centers and light rail stations, we'll be out there sharing information and getting information into folks' hands about the transition in the new system. And so just one of these communication channels, what we're calling Fare System Town Halls. We've held a fair number of these already. We have one actually later today, actually like right after this meeting ends, and then going on through the rest of May and into June. So we're going out there into various cities at various venues like libraries and community centers, providing presentations similar to what you're seeing here, but with just a little more information, more geared towards the public and our riders, and getting that information. And also during these town halls, we're providing opportunities for folks to actually apply for the reduced fare if they're eligible, if they're a senior or a youth, a person with disability. So we're providing those opportunities in person, so they don't have to come down to, like, say, the mobility center, which is centrally located. So we're trying to get out into the outer reaches of the valley, so making it more convenient for those folks. And I just want to touch on the specialty fare programs. So one thing to mention here, these programs, like Joe mentioned, the Platinum Pass. We also have the ASU U Pass, the semester pass program. These programs have historically been administered by the city of Phoenix, as Phoenix has been the legacy transit provider going back several decades. Well, we felt a few years back with this project that as we transition to the new system, it made sense for these programs to transition to Valley Metro to administer, since it's a regional function and a regional system. So we're working to transition these programs from Phoenix to Valley Metro, and at the same time updating the features of these programs. So first, the Platinum program, there's over 200 Platinum participants. So those are employers, other organizations that maybe, provide to employees, students, or clients of their programs. So we had a soft rollout of 9 accounts in March and April and 7 in May. And that's because their old Platinum card with the city of Phoenix was expiring, and there's no way to extend those. Bless you. There's no way to extend the use of those. So in order to get them Platinum cards for their employees and their participants, we rolled out these accounts early. The rest of the 200 plus accounts will be rolled out in June. So everybody will be using a new Platinum card come June 1. And just a highlight there, just to give a magnitude, there are over 90,000 Platinum cards that we've produced for this program. So literally every employer and organization across the Valley that's participated, it's about 230 some organizations, they all had within the last 3 months are transitioning from their old cards to the new cards that will work on the new system. So quite an effort by staff and folks working on the project to get this accomplished. A couple other programs we have, our group fairs program, social services fairs program. So there's over 100 clients that are in these programs, but probably some of these customers have multiple locations, probably somewhere in the neighborhood of 200 to 250 different locations that are served. So these are organizations that provide them to maybe their employees in some cases, maybe they have clients, maybe social services agencies that provide them to their clients and just to get transportation to and from maybe appointments, work, things like that. And since we are transitioning from Phoenix to Valley Metro, we have to process new agreements between Valley Metro and all these organizations. So again, it's been quite an undertaking to transition the Platinum program and these other programs as well. And this effort has been going on for like the last 3 months or so, all looking to launch here in the coming weeks. And that concludes my presentation. There's just some websites here we have available for information to get on the project and the process as we transition from this old fair system into the new. Happy to take any questions.
Okay, thank you, Ken and Joe. Do any members have any questions or comments? I think I have a question. Don't think I know I have a question. And it may not necessarily be related to the fair, but the technology we're using, some of us were in DC last week. And riding any of the transit there, I can plug in where I am and where I want to head to, and it'll give me directions of exactly what bus I need to catch or what rail line I need to catch to get to my ultimate destination. Does any of this do that, or do we have a separate system that does that?
Yes, no, that's in the Valley Metro app. Joe kind of alluded to the trip planning, so that's the trip planning feature of the app.
Okay, great. Exciting to see the new technology being taken advantage.
Yeah,
of.
we're as the project team, we're very excited to see this coming forward. We're pretty well out of date with our current system. We have aging hardware out there that's failing. It's 15 to 17 years old, and we're excited about getting the new hardware and these new features available and kind of get the Phoenix region up to modern technology on our fare system.
Fantastic. Well, thank you for the presentation.
Thanks.
Okay, item 8 is the draft fiscal year 2025 freeway life cycle program. This item is on the agenda for approval. Will be presented by Arminta Saeed, transportation planner. Arminta.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good afternoon, members of Transportation Policy Committee. As Chair Osborne mentioned, I'm here today to provide an overview of our draft fiscal year 2025 freeway lifecycle program. I'll begin by providing a little bit of context. The Freeway Lifecycle Program is the management tool for the implementation of freeway and highway projects that are funded through Proposition 400. Every year, as part of the annual update process, we'll incorporate the latest revenue forecast, cost estimates, as well as any project scheduling changes. This item reflects the update for fiscal year 2025. Beginning with the revenues, the freeway program is primarily funded through 3 sources. They're reflected here on the slide in front of you, and they include the portion of the half-cent sales tax that goes into the Regional Area Road Fund, or RARF, for use on our freeways, the Highway User Revenue Fund, or HERF, as well as some Federal Highway Administration formula funding. The fiscal year 2025 program incorporates the latest forecasts that were produced by ADOT in fall of the last year. And on this slide, what you see is a table comparing the forecasts included in the current program to the prior year's program. With the top two lines, RARF and HERF, you see respectively an increase of 1% and a decrease of 3%. That's pretty on trend for these two funding sources. With the last funding source, the FHWA formula funding, you see a bigger increase than usual of 22%. Both forecasts that are reflected on the slide here are based off of the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act. The reason you see such a big increase in the current draft program is because ADOT, as part of developing their 5-year program, accelerated a lot of their funding that was allocated to their later years, fiscal years 28-29 to fiscal years 25-26, to accommodate some of the larger planned projects we have that I'll be touching on shortly. Then on the project side, we go through the process of these 3 steps that are shown here on the slide in front of you. Firstly, we update the project costs by using the latest unit costs that reflect the latest market conditions. And then we also apply an inflation factor that's also developed by ADOT, also known as the Construction Cost Index. And that's to present the project costs in a year of expenditure basis. And then finally, we work with ADOT as well on any project scheduling changes. As we come near to the expiration of Proposition 400, this draft program does not include very many project changes, but I'll touch on a couple of notable updates. Firstly, in fiscal year 2024, there have been ongoing development efforts to construct a new interchange on I-10 on Gila River Indian Community Land. Previously, this was known as I-10 at Germain Road. As part of the draft program update, that location has been updated to I-10 at Coley Road to reflect the latest alignment efforts. Secondly, there was a construction effort to improve drainage on I-17 between Peoria Avenue to Greenway Road. That was kicked off in fiscal year 2020, but later delayed due to the pandemic. It was actually completed earlier this year, but because of the scheduling changes, there was a change order request. And so as such, we've programmed about $7.5 million to accommodate that. And after that request has been approved, we can go through and close out that contract. And then finally, there's been an increase to the minor improvements subprogram annual allocation. Last month, there was a presentation requesting some funding to restripe a system ramp at Loop 101 and State Route 51. Because of the positive feedback received by committee members during that presentation, we've increased the annual allocation amount from $5 million to $10 million so that we can more effectively address any system needs in a very similar effective manner. This map in front of you reflects the fiscal year 2024 program in review. Essentially, what you're seeing on here are all projects that were under construction in fiscal year 2024. The projects that are reflected in blue were completed construction in that fiscal year, whereas the projects in orange continue to remain under construction. The 2 projects that were completed, first of all, are the 2 interchanges on Loop 303, completed in very early fiscal year 24, and then the drainage project I had just previously mentioned on I-17. Other projects that continue construction include the I-10 at Broadway Curve project, the Loop 101 Pima Freeway widening effort between Princess Drive to Shea Boulevard, as well as the I-17 North Flex Lanes project. And then 2 new projects initiated construction in fiscal year 24. These include Loop 202 Santan between Val Vista and Loop 101, as well as a similar widening on Loop 101 Agua Fria between I-17 and 75th Avenue. And then looking forward at fiscal year 2025, The projects shown on this map in orange reflect the upcoming projects we have planned for construction. So I'll just go through them at a high level in quick order. First of all, on the west, you have the widening on I-10 between State Route 85 and Citrus Road. This is primarily funded through a legislative appropriation. You also have a extension of Loop 303 going south between MC 85 and Van Buren Road. You also have the portion of the I-10 Wild Horse Pass corridor that's within Maricopa County from Loop 202 to Riggs Road, the I-10 at Coley Road interchange that I previously mentioned. Oh, and I missed one, the I-10 at Loop 101 Agua Fria System interchange. And then finally, that we've programmed construction for that restripe at Loop 101 at State Route 51 based on approval from committee last month. And then lastly, I'll just end by touching on some of our Proposition 479 ongoing development activities. These are all for projects that are in the first phase of Proposition 479 and have been officially incorporated into the freeway program. This includes 2 interchanges on I-10 at Jackrabbit Trail and Baseline Road. These are working through development activities and producing their design concept report. And then we have some final design efforts underway as well. This includes State Route 24 between Loop 202 to Ironwood Drive, as well as the first piece of the State Route 30 center segment between Loop 202 and 97th Avenue. And then also primarily legislatively funded is the widening on Loop 303 between I-17 to Lake Pleasant Parkway, as well as the system interchange at Loop 303 and I-17. So that concludes my presentation today. The action requested is up here on the slide in front of you, but I'm happy to take any questions if members have any. Thank you.
Thank you, Arminta. Do any members have any questions or comments? Mr. Stipp?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The project widening I-10 from Citrus to SR 85, you said was legislatively funded. Is there any, and you may not be able to answer this, there was discussion about those legislatively funded projects perhaps being swept? Because is that still a possibility? That's A, and then I've got a B. So depending on that answer.
Mr. Chair, Councilmember Stipp, I'll jump in on that. That's certainly one that we continue to track closely, as Ms. Kester-Thomas will touch on a little later in the presentation. With the state budget deficit, there's a lot of discussion about potential clawbacks of some of these appropriated projects. That's certainly one of the potentials. So we continue to track that closely to see what comes out of it, and obviously continue to make the point of the importance of transportation. I think too, if you can go back maybe to your revenue slide, just to illustrate really the importance. So we talk about that project and the legislative appropriation needed to deliver that. If you compare, if you sort of look at the different categories here, and you look at the state investment levels, without the dedicated half-cent sales tax, just think about what our program would be. So we're not only would we not be able to move forward with projects like that I-10 widening, but many of these projects that we have in the program, we simply wouldn't have the funding to be able to deliver. So, but to answer your question specifically, we continue to track that and certainly on our radar.
Okay, so then B, if that does get swept, is there a plan B for that segment of the road?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, members of the TPC. So we do have funding set aside for that. MAG Regional Council approved $10 million for that project. So we'll continue the final design. Certainly if that gets clawed back, as well as many of the other projects, we'll have to have conversations here about how to handle it. That was a project identified in the RSIP. And so we'll manage it together. Certainly we'll look at other creative solutions too. If there's an interim step that we could look at, perhaps a restripe, something of that sort. But we continue to work with our partners at ADOT to see what can be done, but it certainly will bring a larger policy conversation about how we handle some of these legislative clawbacks and really the vast need that we have for transportation infrastructure.
So just to, that's very doom and gloom. So to lighten that, we have done our best to try to prevent people from driving into Buckeye. And leaving our city, but knowing that they are going to Buckeye anyway, I think it's regionally important. And then if you think about how that traffic backs up right now, the traffic is backing up from that Buckeye Goodyear border all the way almost to the 101 right now. So we talk a lot about capacity and traffic flow, et cetera. I'm sure this is the east-west between California and Phoenix. I know we'll talk about it regionally, and I know we'll figure out how to rebalance this, but this is I'm gonna say this is my last chance to kind of rally for that. That's not a Buckeye problem. That's not a Goodyear problem. This is a state problem. That if they choose to sweep that, and if they choose to sweep any of it, to your point, we cannot live without the half cent. However, regionally, if I'm thinking about relocating my business from California to the Phoenix metro area, and I spend one road trip in, I'm never going to do that because of that bottleneck that occurs there. So I'm for anybody who is not familiar with that area, this is a commerce problem. This is a resident problem. This is really a regional and state issue. So did I do good, Mayor? Did I cover our problem out
You
there?
did great. The bottom line to all that is you would want to stop and put your business in Buckeye so that you wouldn't have to drive in east. But it's a really good point. I think just to further hammer down on that point, this is a project that is identified, and correct me if I'm wrong, in the Prop 400 or Prop 479, but it's a ways out there, much later phases,
Correct.
like 20 years out.
Yes.
And what we were trying to do with the legislature last year is bring this one forward. They had offered up the monies to do that, and now are talking about potentially pulling that back. So if this does get pulled back, we have $10 million that was the match. But beyond that, we have no funding to make that happen. And you're exactly right. It's not a Goodyear or a Buckeye problem. That is commerce going. That's the pipeline to where we're selling all our goods to. So incredibly important that stays in there and gets built out. Ms. Daniels.
Thank you, Chair. I'm an ever-present optimist, so I will encourage all of us to think positively about Prop 479. At the same time, recognize that if that were not to pass in November, that it is next year's cycle, not just through the legislature, but also the 5-year plan that gets updated annually through ADOT. There will be a complete and total reshuffling of prioritization when it comes to overall state dollars. So I don't want us to look at individual projects. I think State Route 24 is equally as important to that State Route 85, depending on what part of the valley you live in or where your business is located for that matter. And so I just want us to really stay focused on Prop 479 passing, and then recognize that the entire state will have to reshuffle priorities and programs and plans if in fact Prop 479 does not pass. So
100% agree, and it will pass. But if it doesn't, we got bigger problems. Than
I think
just
I
this
also
threat.
just heard Councilmember Stipp maybe stepping up to take the ADOT position that has been made vacant by Mayor Meck, who has completed his term on the State Transportation Board. So I don't know if you heard that the way I heard it, but
to do when I'm done.
I know I hear some passion in his voice for a road, and that usually is the impetus for the application. So
He looks really excited. to
pointing
do
that out there.
Yeah. Any other comments or questions on this item? Mayor Wires.
Yeah, I think I'd just like to remind everybody, there's a couple of us that have been here for over a decade now. And this rebalancing is going to happen. It's just going to happen. It doesn't mean that Arizona's coming to an end. It's going to be unpleasant for a while, but the one strength that we have is the fact that people keep coming to Arizona, no matter what you want to say or what you want to think. People keep coming. So worst case scenario, projects get slowed down another couple of years, which is one of the worst things that could happen. But when it comes back with a vengeance. And some of you probably remember not very long ago that we were cutting things, and literally it was a year and a half later, we were trying to figure out how do we bring these things back. So don't look at it as a bad thing. The legislature is going to do what they have to do to make the state work. So, just don't give up hope. We have to keep trying. 479, we need to make that happen, and that's going to take everybody in here making that happen. We can't lean on everybody else. We got to do it ourselves. That's all I got.
Mayor Wheatley.
Yes, thank you. I just really appreciate MAG and the regional members here and how important State Route 24 is to the Southeast region, and recognizing those permanent improvements. We call it the Parkway because it's just at grade. It has traffic lights, and so it becomes a parkway when people have to park due to traffic. But just recognizing the rapid growth in that area, obviously the economic development that's happening there. We're also facing similar issues with the clawback of $87.5 million, specifically at the interchange where LG Energy Solution is locating. And so we'll continue to work with the governor, with our legislator, but just really appreciate the attention to this.
Okay. Any other comments or questions? Perhaps we could have the marketing department come up with a better name, Regional Area Road Fund. Can you please say that once again, Arminta?
Regional Area Road Fund.
Which is known as
RARF.
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 What a terrible name. Okay, so this is on for the action requested is recommended approval. And prior to voting, there's an opportunity for members of the public to comment about RARF or anything else. I do not have any requests for this agenda item. Staff who have received any online written comments for this agenda item.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We did not receive any online written comments for this agenda item.
Okay, do I have a motion from the committee?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second, motion by Mayor Wheatley and a second by Mayor Gallego. We'll have those participating in the meeting online take part in a voice vote by turning on their cameras. Audio members, please leave your cameras on until after the roll call vote. Can I have a voice vote of those in the room and those online? Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
And those opposed say nay. Members, please leave your cameras on. Staff, can you take a roll call vote of the members participating virtually who did not turn on their cameras?
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members. When I call your name, please indicate how you vote. Councilmember Littlefield?
Aye.
Thank you. Mr. Chair, the motion passes.
All right. Thank you very much. Item 9, Southeast Valley Transportation Update. This item is on the agenda for information and discussion and will be presented by Bradley Williams, Transportation Engineer.
One day I'm going to turn it on before I start talking. Right. This is the second in a series of transportation updates. Last month was the Northwest Valley. Today is the Southeast Valley. There will be another presentation next month as well. The Southeast Valley is basically the area that, there we go, east of Sossaman Street and generally south of the US 60. And it includes jurisdictions in Mesa, Apache Junction, Queen Creek, Florence, and unincorporated area primarily in Pinal County. I'm going to start with a discussion on what I think is an unusual, perhaps unique transportation sorry about that. Transportation travel pattern that occurs in this area. And it's basically people at the southern end have to drive north, or however they travel, go north, and then make a left turn to go into the central portion of the region. There are actually 97,000 of these trips for work trips. People who live in this area, and this is showing where they work. This is throughout the whole days, 97,000 each workday, which is a substantial number. And you can see that not many of them work within the area. They have to travel into the central portion of the region for their jobs. And this pattern will help us to understand the kind of issues that we're dealing with as we go through the rest of the presentation. Now we're going to look at population growth. This is a dot diagram. Every dot represents 15 people. So 100 dots represents 1,500 people. 1,000 dots is 15,000 people. So in 2020, in 2010, this area was already urbanizing. Here in 2020, this is after the first section of State Route 24 was put in place. We can see that it's growing quite rapidly. Here's 2030. We see it's just getting denser and denser over time to 2050. And you can even see here in just the pattern of the dots, there's this vertical sort of line going up from the south and then curving to the west, which is we see in that travel pattern. So let's put some numbers to that. In 2010, there were 240,000 people living in this area. And after 2014, when State Route 24, the first section was built and people were anticipating it, there was an increase in population growth. Between 2020 and 2023, the population grew by 40,000 people. That's 13,000 people a year during that time. We're looking at a growth rate out to the year 2030, which is 10,000 people a year. And then that will be followed with a somewhat less 8,000 people a year all the way out to 2050, when we will reach 600,000 people in this area. I want to point out employment for just a minute. In 2010, there was one job for every 10 people who lived in this area. Today, that's changed to one job in every 5.5 people. And by 2050, it will be one job for every 4 people, which is getting close to one job per household. So there will be not only an increase in population, but work opportunities will be growing at an even higher percentage. This is a development map, and I should point out that the blue boundary that you're seeing is an area that's under study. There's a multimodal transportation plan underway for the Superstition Vistas area. And we're getting statistics from the area inside of this boundary. And from their early reports, we can see the status of development projects. So what you see in purple are actively developed. They're under construction. If it's in green, they're in the approvals process at some point now, working towards getting approval. So it helps us to understand just how much development is being planned in this area. And of course, we have a number of transportation issues. We have some constraints. You can see the Central Arizona Cap Canal running vertically right through the middle of this area, and that's quite a substantial physical constraint that has to be dealt with. The arterial system is maturing, and there are a lot more improvements that are going to be needed. And the blue area that you see is state-owned land that the state land department can make available. And so they're very much an active participant in what's happening in this area. Now we're going to look at traffic volumes for a bit, starting at 2020. This is the color coding, and the width of the line is based on the traffic volume. This isn't showing levels of service, but just how many vehicles are on the roads. So the darker the line, the more vehicles there are. And in 2020, what you can see here is the arterial system, especially north and south of State Route 24. Well, the black line there wasn't built yet in 2020. But the arterial roads in that area needed to be built in order to connect to it. So when we look now, the next one is 2030, we can see that there's a more mature arterial system, but you can see the lines are getting darker. You can still see that pattern coming up from the south and then going to the west into the rest of the region, 2040 and in 2050. And here we can see there's an extension of State Route 24 going out to the north-south corridor, which is a freeway, and I'll talk about that a bit later in this presentation. Let's look at the history of State Route 24. As I mentioned earlier, the very first section was built in 2014. That goes to Ellsworth Road, and that was at the time, coincidentally, or perhaps this was a catalyst for the acceleration of growth in the area in anticipation of this becoming a longer freeway. It's currently, as already been mentioned today, it's freeway, it's built to freeway standards, but it's basically an arterial street because there's a traffic signal every mile. That's the current design that's there. There is a design underway right now to upgrade it to full freeway standards with bridges over all of those interchanges and 3x3 lanes. And that is currently in design. This one, the first two that you saw are funded out of Prop 400. Okay, but this one doesn't have construction funds until Prop 479. So from this point on, we're looking at Prop 479 funding to make this happen. And that includes, by the year 2050, widening to 4 lanes in each direction on State Route 24. There are a number of other improvements that are being provided by Prop 479. And here you can see they're predominantly arterial improvements. They include widening roads, filling in gaps, HOV lanes on US 60 and new bridges. And there are also a number of planning studies underway at MAG right now in this area, and I'm going to go through them one by one. The first one is the Superstition Vistas Multimodal Transportation Planning Study. I mentioned that earlier, and you can see the area here. This is really an opportunity to look at opportunities, make decisions on new roads. It's got a long list of stakeholders on this study. I'll mention them again: Apache Junction, ADOT, Florence, the Gila River Indian Community, Mesa, Pinal County, and Queen Creek, as well as ASLD. So this is the opportunity in a multi-jurisdictional manner to look at this area and come up with some key decisions on what needs to be done going forward. The next one is the Meridian Road Corridor Study. You can see the vertical blue line here. Parts of that road aren't even built yet, and there are issues with right-of-way and alignment that have to be dealt with. So this is an ongoing study that it's actually just about to begin, I think, and that will be able to give us some better guidance on how that road can be completed. In Queen Creek, there's a mobility options and connectivity study. This is looking at what kinds of options are there to improve mobility and connectivity in this area. That study is underway. The Ironwood Road interchange at SR 24 is an interesting problem. And it's another example of that travel pattern with people driving north and then making a left turn to go west. So right now at the dot that you see there, that's the interchange. There are 1,500 people in the morning peak hour that make a left turn to get onto the 24 so they can get into the central portion of the region. Well, that's today. And with the growth rate that we have, it's probably not years, it's probably months before that becomes untenable. And so something needs to be done even before the freeway is extended further to the east. We also have the north-south corridor. You see here the vertical blue line. This is a freeway. It was actually a few years ago ADOT did a Tier 1 environmental impact statement, and they fixed an alignment. That alignment has a 1,500-foot width envelope for that alignment. And as long as the end project is within that envelope, ADOT has the authority to act on the air quality and environmental impact analysis of this project. There's a Tier 2 DIS underway now for the northern portion, which begins at Arizona Farms and goes up to the north to US 60. That's underway right now. They're going to reduce that envelope to a smaller amount and be able to move forward then into design. The problem we have, of course, on this one is we need a funding opportunity. There's currently no known funding source that can pay for the construction of this project. And before I leave, I want to mention one other project. It's not being done by MAG, but there is a planning study for another north-south corridor. It's called the Central Arizona Parkway. And that's being done by Pinal County, and it would be west of the north-south corridor. And it would run from the south all the way connecting to State Route 24. So what are the key takeaways from this update? This is a very, very rapidly growing area. And it has a unique travel pattern that makes it more difficult to find good, effective solutions. We have a number of near-term improvements underway. They're not going to solve all the problem. We need more. Prop 479 is certainly helping in that regard, but there are a number of projects that don't have funding even in Prop 479. Projects in Pinal County can't take advantage of Prop 479. So there are a number of funding opportunities needed for some key roadways in this area in the future. Mr. Chairman, that concludes my presentation.
Thank you, Brad. Do any members have any questions or comments? Mary Wheatley, I can't imagine that you would want to chime in on this at all, right?
I know. Quick question for you, Brad. Do you mind going back to slide 55? I wanted to talk about the population really quick. Does that include our neighbors just south in Pinal County in Santan Valley?
This is the area that was in the blue outline.
Okay.
Okay, so it goes down a little south of Arizona Farms Road.
Okay.
Between Sossaman Road on the west, a little bit north of US 60 on the north.
Okay.
And it goes all the way over to the 60 and the 79.
Great. Okay. Thank you for that clarification. I know Santan Valley, speaking with their supervisor, they're 85% of Santan Valley commute northeast. And so that left-hand turn on Ironwood there that has 1,500 left-hand turns. It's significant. It's a lot of public safety demands for the town of Queen Creek. And again, just such a rapidly growing area, but recognize how important these studies are to get us to that final design. I also recognize I'll be over 70 before we get there, but I know the importance of the studies and the plan and just appreciate delving into this further to recognize again, just the immense growth there and how it impacts the residents, but also the economic development happening there. So again, appreciate.
And the public safety chorus in the background, I think
Yes,
was
right.
appropriate. Yes.
One of the things that I just want us to continue to remember as we're planning out this far in advance, which I think is still, again, a critical component, is that we're basing our analysis off of where current employment zones are or corridors are, recognizing that in the future, there will be additional employment corridors that extend north and east of an area like Santan Valley and not just west. And so it doesn't mean that we're ever not going to need the facilities that travel west. But it brings me to a question that was close to the end of your slide, if you don't mind going closer to the end of your presentation. And it's a conversation that I've had several times with the Pinal County supervisors, and that is finding another east-west corridor that connects over to the 79. that is farther south to accommodate what we anticipate will be additional employment corridors around the Florence area and even extending more towards the Copper Corridor. And so has there been any additional discussion in that vein that producing a corridor? Because obviously we've got the Parkway that you mentioned that Pinal County is doing, and then also the north-south that's underway with their tier 2, but another east-west that would be south of the 24. Because if you look at that particular area, I think that from a long-term planning perspective, that may be an additional necessity at some point.
Well, certainly as you look at these maps, oh, thank you. Thank you, members of the committee. As you look at this map, there aren't a lot of east-west roads going east of what's already there. The population in that area is a bit further in the future, so it doesn't show up in the regional transportation plan yet. But I share your concern that even now, it would be nice to start doing some advanced planning and understanding that we may need some higher capacity corridors in this area that we're not seeing right now.
Yeah, I know the topography is a little complicated in that area too, as we've taken some very bumpy road trips out on some of those desert roads. But I do anticipate that at some point in time, we've talked about Hunt Highway perhaps extending farther east and creating a different type of capacity along Hunt Highway. But the more population that exists, the harder it is to identify corridors. And so again, that future planning, the really long lens that says, okay, here's, a line on a map that we can all sort of anticipate, changes the way that development occurs. And I just think that, again, having that even longer lens could be beneficial in this particular area.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? I think just one other from me. I really appreciate the look that we're taking across the entire valley. I think this continues over the next months, correct, as we're leading up toward Prop 479 and the importance of 479, not just on a particular location. I know we've already spoke to how important it is to the Goodyear Buckeye area with the I-10 widening. We talked last month with about specifically that northwest area where the 60 and 303 is. Mayor Hall had an opportunity to share how things are happening there. Mayor Wheatley this month, and that entire area. And there isn't, so we've kind of spanned the boundaries of it. There isn't anything in between that doesn't have the same need for transportation infrastructure also, and varying transportation infrastructure. Some of it's new freeways, some of it's arterial road construction, and there's a great deal of it that is transit and rail opportunities also. So really appreciate what we're doing and taking a full MAG region view of how important it is that we get Prop 479 passed. Okay, thank you very much. Great presentation. Item 10 is the good news only legislative update. This item is on the agenda for information and discussion. Audra Kester Thomas will present the good news only update.
Those are fantastic expectations for which I sadly will fall short, I'm afraid. While the House and Senate have come back to advance several bills this week, no significant developments on the budget seem to yet have emerged. Late last month, Governor Hobbs did issue direction to develop plans to cut $1.2 billion from state departments' budgets. Agency heads were directed to cut 4% from the existing budget and 2% from the next fiscal year starting July 1st. Directive also for agencies not to fill current position vacancies was also included in her guidance. This is, of course, in response to the budget deficit projected over the next 2 years to be over $1 billion. Of concern, as we have talked several times and have already been highlighted today by Councilmember Stipp and Chairman Osborne, are several of these appropriations that have been set aside including the I-10 West widening from SR 85 to Citrus, which over fiscals year 23 and 24 totals 113 million. As Vice Chair Wheatley had mentioned, SR 24 extension in Pinell County, which totals over $87 million appropriated last year. These and many, many, many other appropriations, not just within transportation, but throughout the state. We will continue to track and wait for budget negotiations to advance. This week is also Infrastructure Week, and we are also nearly halfway through the current Service Transportation Authorization, known as the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act. As such, attention has started to shift towards the next reauthorization. To this end has been an issue that we have long followed here at MAG, and many of our peers throughout the Intermountain West, are the funding formula allocations that are used to base allocations off of. Using census data that is old and outdated puts Arizona and this region behind. And this is a particular issue, not just here in Arizona, but throughout the Intermountain West and other fast-growing states. Our Senate delegation has been keenly focused on this issue on our behalf and included in a fiscal year 23 appropriations bill direction for the Government Accountability Office to conduct a study on the formulas used to determine federal aid highway appropriations. I'm happy to report that we have just learned that work is now currently underway, and we're expecting to learn more of its results later this summer or early this fall. Chairman Osborne, that completes my presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions.
That did fall short of what we had requested.
Noted.
Are there any, thank you, Audra. Are there any members that have any questions or comments? I'm seeing none. Thank you very much. Item number 11 is request for future agenda items. Are there any requests from the membership for an item on a future agenda? And I'm not seeing any of those either. The next agenda on the item is comments from the committee. Are there any comments or announcements from the membership?
Just one. May 24th is the last date for public comment for the next 5-year plan through ADOT. So if you want to alert your staff, and I know Mag's been a great partner in all of that, but just wanted to give everybody a heads up, May 24th.
Thank you for that. All right, seeing no other comments, the next meeting of the Transportation Policy Committee will be on Tuesday, June 18th, 2024 at 11:30 a.m. with no further business. Today's meeting is adjourned.